This program is made possible in part by Nebraskans for Public Television. Consider This, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bales Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello and welcome back to the UNO campus, and consider this. The numbers of abortions in Nebraska have been going down in the last decade, and last year in 2001 they were down almost 5% from the year before. Now, to many people, in fact most people, almost without exception, this is very good news. The concept of abortion is displeasing at best to a lot of people and very upsetting to many others. My guest this week is Becky Brenner, and she is president and CEO of Planned Parenthood Omaha Council Bluffs. And when the numbers came out this week, and the World Herald did their annual article on it, down in there was Planned Parenthood, and it didn't surprise me to see your name, but it surprises a lot of people when it says, and Becky Brenner, CEO and president of Planned Parenthood Omaha Council Bluffs, is thrilled.
Right. I think people are very surprised when they ask us, the numbers are down, what do you have to say? And, as an organization, we are very pleased that those numbers are down.
The issue sort of in the paper and in the news business, they always call it advancing the story. I mean, the figures come out, you put the figures in, and then you try to, ask the whys, or what do you think this is because of? And the answers are all over the board. Governor Johanns feels that the abstinence emphasis in Nebraska and maybe across the country is beginning to take hold. Julie Schmidt-Albin of Nebraska Right to Life said, only God knows. And I think, and probably that is true. But and the state health medical director
Dr.
said
Raymond.
that it's the abstinence maybe, and also fewer women of childbearing age. I mean, the reasons go on and on. You seem to have something to add to that.
Right, and I agree with many of the things that those people had said. What I feel in our organization is that we've seen our numbers go up. We have seen more men and women coming in, more women using contraception. We have seen our comprehensive sexuality education programs go up in terms of participants. We've seen 2,000 participants in our education programs. And I think one of the big factors is the use of emergency contraception. Those numbers have dramatically increased year to year to year.
Now, we should define emergency contraception, because some of those of us who are not worrying about that as much anymore, or grew up and were more sexually active, even if we were married or whatever, in years when there was kind of one option, it was a little thing with the pills,
Right.
Explain what you mean by emergency
Well,
contraception.
and what I really wanted to clarify is it is not the abortion pill. It is not RU-486. Emergency contraception is 3 oral contraceptives at a high dose, and you take them within 72 hours of unprotected intercourse, and it will prevent pregnancy in at least 89% of the time.
Now, this has been available for how long?
Years and years and years. It was used off-label, and when I say off-label, it was physicians would punch out those birth control pills and give 3 of them to the woman to take. And since the FDA has approved it as its own prescription, now it's marketed as Plan B or Previn.
Now, that prevents, again, what from happening?
It can work in numerous different ways. It works just like oral contraception. So it can either make the lining of the uterus inhospitable to implantation, or it can prevent the union of sperm and egg, and so it just...
If that hasn't already happened.
Right, if that hasn't already happened. If a woman is pregnant and she takes emergency contraception, it does nothing to the pregnancy.
In other words, if the egg has
Implanted.
adhered to the lining of the uterus...
She's pregnant.
She's pregnant.
That's right.
So there's not a danger factor.
No, none.
When you say we're seeing more of that, or you think that's a factor? I mean, what kinds of numbers are we talking about?
In the year 2001, we saw 4,000 women who came in for emergency contraception.
Now, that would strike me, I mean, as a parent of a teenager, as someone just concerned about responsible sexuality, or abstinence, or whatever area you feel strongest about, or combination of areas. I would say that would tell me that maybe one or more of several things could be happening. That people are more, young people, or could be adults, are more promiscuous. That that they're not being more responsible in taking regular birth control pills. And they're certainly not abstaining. What's your response to that?
There's a lot of factors that play into that. One of them is just accidents happen. The condom breaks, or they miss a pill, and then
and
they
these could
take
be
it.
married people
Oh,
as
sure,
well as
sure. And I want to see those women also on long-term contraception. Emergency contraception is not something that should be used as a regular means of birth control. It's there for emergencies. In our clinics, we do try and offer the women who access us for emergency contraception the ability then to come back in and get on a regular regimen of oral contraceptives or the injectables.
Planned Parenthood is, well, I'd say in the state of Nebraska, those that are fervently pro-life, you're one of two nemesises. That's not the proper plural for nemesis, but Dr. Leroy Carhart, who performs abortions in Bellevue, and it has either renowned or notorious, depending on your point of view, and Planned Parenthood. Not just here, but just because it has those two words together and is an organization. But you have been in Omaha
65 years.
65 years. And just keep, I wouldn't say a low profile, because the people who need you know you're there. I mean, how would you describe yourself as a citizen of this community?
Well, we provide reproductive health care and some limited family practice to men and women who don't have the means sometimes to pay for health care. We slide our fees for everything.
Now, by health care in generally, a woman, you might be talking about pap smears, exams,
breast checks,
some of the basic female health keeping measures.
For a yearly exam. A well woman check is what you might want to call it.
That sounds better than what I said.
Yes, okay. And we provide that service low cost, and if a woman doesn't have any money, it's free. And we've been doing that for years. So many times we'll get women who come in and will only have to pay $5 for their yearly exam, or sometimes nothing. We get referrals from physicians who will send a woman to us because they can't provide a free service in their environment. We do some testing and treatment for abnormal pap smears, and they can be very costly. And so doctors will refer to us for their patients to get a free procedure done. So we've been doing that. We do education. We go into schools and churches, youth groups, behavioral health facilities, and provide some comprehensive programs. We talk about sexually transmitted diseases. We talk about abstinence. We talk about good touch, bad touch, body image. So we incorporate all kinds of things into our services.
Oh, but do you emphasize abstinence enough?
Yes, we do. Every program, every education program that we start with abstinence. I mean, if you truly want to prevent sexually transmitted diseases and pregnancy.
Which is also a high priority.
Right, the number one thing is abstinence. But if you are not going to be abstinent, if you're going to have sex, then we want to give them information to stay safe.
You know, the whole issue of for years, the Planned Parenthood in Omaha, in the metro area, did not have a clinic that actually offered abortions.
Right.
But this has changed.
This has changed. It's interesting. We've probably been a target of protests for years and years.
Oh, every Saturday I see people.
we didn't do abortions. And
Nationally, though, many
Right.
of the, I won't say nationally, that's not the proper phrase, but individual chapters or organizations, affiliates in different states would opt
provided.
to offer.
Right. We started them in September at our Council Bluffs clinic. And I think the reason we started it was, for one thing, our women were asking us to do that. I mean, they're comfortable coming to us. We're their health provider. And they want to go to a place where they feel comfortable. And so that's one of the reasons we started. And another reason is we consider it part of the continuum of reproductive health care. It's something that is legal. And if our patients need one and choose to have one, I want to be able to provide them the best quality service that I can.
You know, I find your phrasing there interesting. If our clients need one and they choose to have one.
Right.
Now, most people would insist that, with extremely few exceptions, no one needs an abortion.
Mm-hmm.
They may choose to have an abortion, and it is legal in this country, but no one needs to have an abortion.
Yes. And my response to that is I can't make that judgment call for another woman.
And that has been basically the reproductive rights argument
Right.
Since that movement.
1964.
Yeah, well, certainly since Roe versus Wade, but even that argument's been made, just making birth control pills available in this
Exactly.
country, and then we can move on to different things throughout. And then it started even years before.
Right.
There have been waves of it.
And I think what's really hard to keep in mind is that it's only been since 1964 that birth control has been legal in states. So we haven't come that far that quickly.
And Roe versus Wade was 72,
72.
was it? Oh, gee, just seems like a long time
So,
ago.
you know, it hasn't been that long that we've been able to just be able to control our own fertility.
How do you feel the state of reproductive freedom is? And again, I'm not, arguing for it or against it, because there are people who say, well, she has this woman on her show, and but reproductive freedom to varying extents is the law in this land. And then there's the whole issue of how we are trying to influence reproductive freedom around the world. But how would you characterize the state of reproductive freedom in this country?
Sometimes I'm very afraid for it in terms of the rights for women to control our own bodies, to decide when and where or how we should have a child. So there are times in my day-to-day work that I'm very alarmed by things that I read, things that I hear. And then sometimes there's that little spark that something passes or someone stands up and says something that I feel pretty good about it. But sometimes I'm very afraid about some of the laws that I see coming down.
What is the trend in the world, the legal world, when legislatures convene? And it's usually done state. The most recent efforts have been statewide, and certainly we see various efforts here. And I think there are people that are trying to do what they believe is right. But there seem to be trends. In other words, what we think will work to limit
Right.
primarily abortion in some way and lower the numbers of abortions.
I think what I'm seeing is that a lot of government is trying to get in between that doctor-patient relationship. So what you'll see is you will see initiatives, statutes, regulations that are created to either mandate what a doctor tells a woman or mandates what a woman can have done.
Waiting periods.
Waiting periods. And we believe, and I believe, that those kind of decisions should be made between the woman and her doctor, with her family or her husband or her partner. Those are the people that should be making that decision, not legislators.
What are, when you're dealing on a day-to-day basis, and I don't know how different Iowa is, because your clinic that provides abortions is in Council Bluffs. What are the day-to-day rules that affect how young people come to your clinic, adult people coming to your clinic, and wanting, maybe they go over to Council Bluffs. What are the current local...
It's amazing. In terms of abortion numbers, we don't really see a lot of minors. You know, despite the public perception that, you know, we're doing in 12 and 13-year-olds, we really don't see a large number. The majority of our population is 18 to 24-year-olds. The minors that we do see come in, for at least for abortions, usually bring their parent. And for contraceptive services, we can provide services for minors in a confidential manner. We don't need parental consent.
Now, how many, the clinic in Council Bluffs opened when?
It's been open for years, but we just started doing right in September.
What numbers?
I believe we've done maybe 50 since we opened.
So in roughly half a year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of concern, and those who are against abortions would wave a magic wand, and every clinic that is legally offering them would disappear. It's hard to separate your personal beliefs about reproductive freedom, but if that were to happen, without becoming overly melodramatic, what do you think the result would then be? If that, if they could wave the wand?
What will happen is it will go down to the state level. So if Roe v. Wade is repealed, if it goes away, what they'll do, what the courts will do, well, they will allow each state to decide whether or not abortion will be legal. So it will go back to what it was before, and each state then would be different. So those women with some economic means could go to a state where they have abortion that's legal and obtain an abortion.
And those without?
Would not. And unfortunately, they'd probably go underground and have illegal abortions.
You know, that's been the thing that I remember when I was in that 18 to 24 age bracket, and Roe v. Wade had already come about, but there was still, and ever since then, the coat hanger thing and all that has been, is that just a dramatic ploy, or do you think, do you honestly?
Women will do it. There are some women that are so desperate who just can't and choose not to have a child at that particular moment in their life, and will do anything. They'll either, take drugs, they will self-induce, find someone who will do it, but abortion's been around for a long time.
There's a play that is going on in Omaha, and it's been in Omaha numbers of times at the Playhouse. In fact, they even took the play to Russia, but I think it's the Dundee Dinner Theater. Quilters is going on right now, or it's just finished its run. And even then, that's about pioneer women and their joys and their sorrows, and how life is woven together like the pieces of a quilt. And one of the scenes in there is a woman who has had a number of children, a pioneer woman, and goes to someone for some concoction. They don't really say.
Right.
And beg. She's it's a hard life. She's had numbers of children, and she they never say the words, but she's seeking help in a kind of a folk medicine way to get an abortifacient.
Right.
And so, this is not anything new, and it was long before that one woman can feel overjoyed, and one woman can be
in despair.
And then there's a lot of, depending on what's happening in your life, feelings in the middle.
And that's one of the reasons. Roe v. Wade was not only for self-determination for a woman, but it was also to keep women safe. Women were dying from self-induced abortion. And this way we could keep women safe and let them, live their lives with choice.
This country prides itself on a number of freedoms, and there are people that feel that freedoms, numbers of freedoms. You can talk to a capital, the biggest capitalist in the world, who feels that the government is chipping away at his freedoms. There are the reproductive rights. There are free speech advocates. We seem to be in this tension all the time of trying to determine what freedom really is.
How do you define it?
Right. Of course, you can go to Afghanistan and they're dealing with basic issues, but we seem to be fine-tuning all the time. And abortion and other reproductive issues seem to be in that mix of the constant one where there's a constant tension.
Yeah, I think it's probably because it touches people so deeply. not only from a religious aspect, but there's a moral aspect. And so you've got all, things feeding into that. I mean, on one hand, someone will say, I truly believe in reproductive freedom, and you've got somebody right on the other side saying, absolutely not, and I will do whatever it takes in terms of threats and violence to see that you do not get that freedom.
And threats and violence are a worry to you. I mean, you have for many years been careful how you open your mail.
Right. Way before the anthrax threat that's been in the press.
And there are a lot of people in between. And it depends on which particular freedom you're talking about. For instance, it's just, you don't even have to get to abortion. There are many people that don't believe that what recently began here at this university of making birth control pills available to students, that's not right.
Right.
There are people that believe that you shouldn't be making them confidential, or the law shouldn't allow you to confidentially make them available to minors. So I mean, and then there are those who favor that but are against abortion.
Right.
So this country doesn't have.
And those are probably some of the easiest people to talk to, are those that understand the importance of family planning, understand contraception, understand the relationship with contraception and low abortion rates. When I go and talk to a senator who says, I don't believe in abortion, but I believe in family planning. So they're much easier to talk to than those that say, I do not believe in family planning and I do not believe in abortion. There's no common ground then.
The whole issue of responsibility, you hear that word cropping up, personal responsibility, partner responsibility, and all this. It's felt by many and strongly believed by a decent number in our country that even taking birth control shows a lack of personal responsibility. There are those who feel it does show personal responsibility. But again, there is no national mandate.
No, and usually by the time someone accesses services at Planned Parenthood, they've already had 4 sexual encounters. So before they even come in my door, they've already been sexually active.
Now, do you kind of query them about this?
That's just kind of
informally, so that you get a feel of who your
right. We have a set of questions that we ask men and women when they come in. We ask them.
You say men?
Oh, they come in.
And what do they come in for?
Condoms.
Excuse me. Oh, okay. I guess that was too obvious for me to pick up on.
Or they come in with their partners, and which is very nice to see. But we ask young women if they're in a consensual relationship. Are they feeling pressured to have sex? We encourage parent communication. Do your parents know you're here? We give them information on how to talk to their parents about this decision that they've made. So we give them all kinds of information when they come in.
That thing you mentioned earlier, RU486, not RU486,
right.
but RU-486, mifepristone?
Right.
Where does that stand in this country? We know it has been approved for use. That's called the morning after pill, but I'm confused.
No, that's called
that's
right.
called RU486.
Right.
Or,
it's called the abortion pill.
Abortion pill. And what is different than the morning after
pill?
The
ECP, the emergency contraception, right, is if you're pregnant, you're still pregnant after you take it. Mifepristone, or RU486, is an abortifacient. It will cause an abortion.
And how available is that? It has been approved for use in this country.
There are some providers in Omaha that are providing it. We currently do not, but we plan on offering it.
Now, at what point is that sought out?
There's a very, very narrow time frame in a woman's pregnancy that she can take it. It gives a lot of the responsibility of this service to the woman. She takes it and then she goes home. And she effectively has a miscarriage then at home. So it puts a lot of the responsibility on the woman. So it's not for everybody.
And it has caused great furor in the pro-life community, the anti-abortion community, and the fight to get it here or keep it from coming here, fight to get it here depending on what side you're on, and then But we haven't heard much about it locally. Is it just so low profile? Because it's
that
probably
and we
being
don't
offered
get
by
a-
private.
Right, and we don't get a lot of requests for it. A lot of
It's pretty tough. I mean, it can be tough on a woman.
yeah, and you don't. It's not something you want to do if you're alone. You know, because you're going to have cramping, you're going to have some bleeding.
Do you find out you're pregnant?
Yes.
And then,
You have an ultrasound to date it.
so what
date-
window of opportunity are we talking about?
It's very narrow. I'm not quite sure how far along that you can be, but you can't be very far along.
But you are going to offer it at some point. The world of reproductive freedom is far more complicated than it was when I was a student here. The issues were birth control was available, Roe versus Wade had become a reality, but even then there was a feeling that if you went and asked for birth control pills or sought out, you were a bad girl.
Yes.
Now, some people would say they wish we, and I shouldn't use bad, but an irresponsible person at minimum. And now it's the other extreme, everybody does, and people wish there almost would be a feeling of you can't turn back the hands of time in pieces. You either have to turn them back to when this wasn't available, or you have to watch the natural progression, evolution of using certain tools.
I think if you look at studies done in Germany and England and France, where sexual education and a person's own sexuality is a lot more freer, discussed, it's a part of life, your sexuality is a part of who you are, you see a lot less unintended pregnancies, you see a lot less sexually transmitted diseases, you see a lot more responsible behavior, and I think it's because it's such an accepted way of life, and it celebrates a person's sexuality.
Couple quick questions as we wrap up, and we only have a minute, but are sexually transmitted diseases on the decline?
Certain ones are. Syphilis is on the decline, gonorrhea is a little bit on the decline, but chlamydia is still not really climbing, but it's pretty much steady.
We haven't been able to
No.
bring those numbers
And I think
down.
it's because we're testing more often than what we used to.
In a handful of words, what is your biggest concern for reproductive rights in Omaha, Council Bluffs right now?
Denying access to women who need it. I mean, we have women who are yelled at and shouted, and they're coming in to get a breast exam. So I think denying access to women who need these services.
But as we started out the show, the abortion numbers are down. That makes everyone I know happy.
Exactly.
And thank you so much for joining us today,
Thank you.
Becky Brenner, President and CEO of Planned Parenthood Omaha Council Bluffs. You want to check us out on the web, it's unotv.unomaha.edu. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
This program is made possible in part by Nebraskans for Public Television.